Ammar, how's it going? We are on the eve of the Brazilian Grand Prix, the highlight of the tail end of the season. I love this race, man. It's so much fun. How hype are you?
I am super hyped. I couldn't be more hyped. I'm hoping for rain. Shez, is there going to be rain this weekend? Do we know?
Apparently, it's going to be. I think Saturday dry, Friday, Saturday wet, Sunday dry is what I've heard.
Oof. Yes. This feels like the race that could essentially decide the championship. In the sense that it could either put Max in the mix or not, right? Because Max has done some magic last year. Anything short of that, to be honest, I mean, anything short of being on the top step of the podium probably becomes difficult then. No, so I'm kind of interested to see what he does more so than what McLaren do.
Okay. So with that in mind, and given that you have such a short time limit, we are going to go through each of the title contenders one by one, and we're gonna go. What are their chances in this race in particular, and then what are their chances for the championship? Okay, so let's start right at the top. Numero uno, the Lion, Max Verstappen. Is he going to win the race? Yes or no?
Yes, maybe no. He can do all three.
That could be the answer for me, Ammar, if you wanted to. I could win the race if I was taking part.
Well, I mean, I'd be more firmly yes in your case. It's difficult to bet against Max only because what he did last year in an equally dominant McLaren that he was going up against, and there was Mercedes in the mix too. So. It will be an interesting weekend. I think really the fact that there's a sprint race also kind of adds more drama to it. But the very fact that there's rain, I think on 2 out of the 3 days, if I were to bet my money, I would actually not be betting on Max winning. I just think the McLarens have it down. But again, I say that with all the caveats. I wouldn't be surprised if Max won, and also, by the way, dominated the field too. Like I could see that happen too.
So you think Max isn't going to win it?
I don't think he's going to win. I don't think for this particular race he will. Wow.
Blasphemy.
I know it's a tough. I know it's a tough. And I know I'm going to get waxed in the comments. It's probably going to happen. But
absolute blasphemy.
I just instinctively, yeah.
I think the problem is that if it is actually wet on Saturday, I think Max takes pole. I think
cool.
I think Red Bull have sorted out their issues from last year. And all things being equal, there isn't a stranded Lance Stroll in the middle of the track. They don't pull a yellow flag just at the moment that Max is going through that yellow flag, and he gets pole, because if it's wet, there is no one better right now. No question about that.
Can I push back on that for a second? I mean, I'm not doubting his ability to get pole in a rain-soaked qualifying, but when there's rain on a qualifying day, I mean, all bets are off in terms of what that means in terms of when it rains, how heavy it gets, those kind of things. I mean, it's not that hard for Red Bull to get it wrong, not because they're not competent, but
But if we're planning on stuff unexpectedly happening, then we can say that anybody could get pole. I could say Ollie Behrman could get pole.
Well, but that's the reason why I'm saying he won't get pole and ergo won't win the race.
Okay.
That's my point with this. But
being equal, if it's wet, Max gets pole.
Yeah, that's fair. It's difficult to argue on that. There's no argument.
So if that happens, even
Ferrari gets pole. That would be great. No, this is, guys. I know I'm the Ferrari homer here, but this is the weekend where you essentially want a Lewis Hamilton pole, and I know you guys are going to say, oh, Charles Leclerc. No, I actually want Lewis Hamilton to be on pole, because this is the exact kind of storyline you would need for the season. Like, that's exactly what you want after the last 2 weeks. That'd be great.
I don't think you know our audience. Not one person in the comments is going to say they want Charles Leclerc on pole.
Well, there might be a couple.
But I think, look, if you have Max on pole and either Lando or Oscar behind, and the thing is, going on current form, if it's wet, you'd kind of expect probably Lando would be ahead of Oscar, lining up there behind them. Even if the McLaren is a quicker car across the race, if it comes to Lando versus Max, race long, and Max gets off in the lead, do you see Lando beating Max?
No, if Max gets into the lead, nobody's beating him, right? Nobody. I mean, you'd have to throw.
Do you think Lando, based on...
That's a more interesting question.
No, this is it. Do you think Lando, based on his entire body of work till now, is going to have a start good enough to overtake Max Verstappen into the first 2-3 corners of the
possibly I could see that happen. I mean, Brazil is
based on
it's not based on just law of averages. At some point somebody gets it right. Trust. I know. Look, man, the easy thing to do is for me to come on here and say yes, Max is going to get off the line, because he's only done that like 17 million times now. So I get it. I mean, I'm not going to argue with someone who says that. But if I were to just sort of take the off the beaten path, right, I would say that there's a good chance that Lando does it now. By the way, this essentially, I mean, that turn one could define whether Max is in the championship or not. And this could all work out well for Oscar if the two of them start to bigger too. So there's a little bit of math and calculation going too in all of this. So,
I think that math and calculation works in Max's favor. Max has to win the race. Max has to win it, whereas Lando doesn't. He's 36 points ahead of Max Verstappen right now. He does not have to win this race. He has to just finish in the points with some decent points, which his car will most likely have the performance to do. And he will probably have the performance to extract it from the car. Yeah. I think Oscar probably in Brazil will as well. So for them, the equation is a bit more complex to work out, but easier to execute. Whereas Max has to win. There, like nothing else will do.
There's no two ways about it. Yes, absolutely. I mean, and that's why this race feels very pivotal.
I agree with you. I think this is a pivotal.
But Shez, also, can I quickly add? We're talking about the race, but if you have a rain-soaked sprint, I mean, those 8 points. I mean, I could see one of these cars not even finishing. It could totally happen, and again, through no fault of their own too. So that could also happen to Max. I mean, let me just throw this out there. I'm not trying to throw bad juju, but Max has not been on the receiving end of any bad luck per se this year, especially when he's been in contention form. I know there have been things that happen in the British Grand Prix and all that. It was a different time, right? Like, so I'm just saying that at some point, some of these things are going to happen. I'm not trying to will it in, by the way. I'd like to see Max win. I just don't think it's going to happen this weekend.
Unless Max has an engine failure, it's not going to happen. Because
that can happen
any
too.
kind of slip, he manages to
sure.
You saw what he did.
Sure.
You saw what he did at the Brazilian Grand Prix in 2016. I mean, that was an unsavable slide at full speed,
and he saved
it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You can
turn around and argue with me about Silverstone this year, but that for me is an anomaly, and I don't think he has another one of those in his locker.
Well, but all I'm trying to say is there hasn't been an anomaly with consequences, right? Quite this way, right? I mean, one of these times it's going to happen, and it's not because it takes away from Max's greatness or anything. Everybody makes mistakes, and he's only human at the end of the day. Everybody has bad luck, and he's only human at the end of the day. So I don't believe that this would be self-inflicted or a referendum on his greatness or lack thereof, if that's the case to be made. I think it just feels like that. I don't know. Maybe it's the change in weather. I don't know.
Now, in the wet in Brazil, where he knows all of the karting lines, where he has practiced this and then perfected it, Max doesn't make mistakes. I'm sorry. Like, I don't think around here he is.
I'm not saying he's going to make a mistake. I just said there hasn't been anything on to.
I think around Sao Paulo, he is not human. He is, in fact, extraterrestrial.
God. Senna. Incarnate.
Senna was.
You don't want to go that far.
No, Senna was fallible. I think Max is better. That's.
Whoa.
No, genuinely, I think he is.
Wow.
I don't think that's actually even that.
Prost wouldn't even come in the same zip code then.
According to you. So I think it's a tricky one. I think if it is as predicted, if it's wet on Friday and Saturday, I think Max gets sprint pole, wins the sprint, and then is fighting
So
one or other of the McLarens who have more to lose by trying an outrageous move than Max does in just going all out for the win, which he is more than capable of achieving, even in that Red Bull, which you'd expect actually that some of the upgrades from Mexico will start to pay dividends on a higher grip, higher downforce track, like Interlagos.
So Shez, do I have it clear? You have Max wiping the floor this weekend, like essentially taking everything away?
There's too many scenarios where Max takes full points for me to not think that I think it's going to be Max. But I think more interestingly is the next question is, do we think that translates into championship success at the end of the season for Max Verstappen? Go.
If he wins this race, it really depends on where the McLarens finish. If they finish on the podium, then I still think this sort of carries on, which keeps us more interested in to see what happens now. We kind of move to the Middle East leg of things, right? Essentially, that's where we're going. Are we going to Qatar next? Are we going there? Are we Qatar next, and then Abu Dhabi? And am I missing a race in between?
Where's Vegas?
Oh, Vegas. That's right. Yes, and Vegas is not really a good track for Red Bull, is it?
Not a great track for McLaren either. Remember
that's true.
Remember they were 5th and 6th last year.
That's true, but I mean, I feel like it was even worse for Red Bull now. So I mean, look, again, they could have solved a lot of the issues with the upgrades that they brought. I think a Max win and a McLaren podium, or podium for either of the drivers, I would say, but certainly for both, kind of keeps this in play too, because they kind of keep to get moving forward too, and that's all they really need, right? In some ways, and they just need one of these races to break their way. But I think outside of that, they would sort of move forward. But yeah, it all depends on where McLaren finish. If McLaren finishes, to play your game, Shez, let's say if Lando, I think if Oscar finishes out of the points, which I don't see happening, right, that really kind of puts Max in there too, because then it's again back to Lando versus Max essentially at that point. Like I think even though Oscar would probably still have a little bit of a lead, right, on Max at that point, boy, that would be interesting again. To kind of turn the table around. But again, we're playing scenarios, so we can come up with 15 others.
We're going to get to that anyway. But I think Brazil and Vegas are the last two races really where the Red Bull can really stretch its legs, and Max can absolutely maximize the damage. The problem for Max is that he has to not just maximize, he has to win every single race from here until the end of the season. And I just don't see that happening at somewhere like Qatar. And I don't necessarily really see it happening at somewhere like Abu Dhabi either. And if that's the benchmark, I just
and Vegas either. So
I just don't fully see that coming off. And that's not just about Max performing at his best. It is about Red Bull as a team. They have not been completely perfect this season. They have to get every pit stop absolutely right, not just for Max but for Yuki as well. They have to get every single strategy call absolutely right. And yes, they've got Hannah Schmitz on the pit wall calling the shots, but even she has made mistakes this season. The early part of this year wasn't completely infallible for that team. And yes, they have brought themselves back into it, becoming more like the Red Bull that we know and love. But there's still a bit of a mistake in there from the team, even if it's not coming from Max himself. And again, we have to reckon with the fact that he does not have a rear gunner. He is, like he was last season, fighting an action solo. He doesn't have his teammate backing him up or taking points off his rivals in the way that the two McLarens do with him.
Yeah, and when you're chasing, and especially when you have no room for error, I think the stakes and the mistakes can only get highlighted more. It's different when you're the one who has the lead. You can play a little bit of defense. You can figure out ways to kind of minimize your damage. But when you have to go after max points, and again, the big question mark is also what do the teams like Mercedes or Ferrari do? Because they were going to have something to say in the rest of these remaining races as well. So if you have a McLaren or a Ferrari, if you have a Mercedes or a Ferrari tucked in between, those are not easy customers to get by. Yeah. No matter how you think about their driving styles or how you feel about them personally, Lewis, Charles, George, even Kimi is not easy to get by, right? I could also see a Racing Bull up there in some way, shape, or form too, just kind of, mucking it up a little bit. Yeah, so you just never know. And Brazil is, again, one of those races where you can see something like that happen. I mean, wasn't there an Alpine on the podium, or were there two of them on the podium?
Two Alpines
So there
last
you go,
season.
yeah.
But Brazil is, even in this ground effects era, it is the kind of track where you can have, you can pull off an overtake. It's not the kind of place that is like Austin.
True.
Right.
True.
True. Which used to be great for overtaking, but now isn't. But they've shown they've shown across this rule set that actually,
which is why I don't think you could be too down on McLaren not being on pole on Saturday, right? I think that over the course of a race, and if they get to sort of play out their sessions, they can have enough data, even if it's with rain, they can have enough data to kind of put the car in a window where over the course of the race, they can make it work, which I think is a more fascinating scenario, right? Because if you have Max in pole and the two McLaren drivers, what do you do now? Are you going after Max, or are you just competing with each other? And that kind of brings in a whole world. But just look at how they're making decisions and see how they're trying to do stuff. So that could easily swing the way the podium looks at the end. So
that's the key here, right? They don't have to go for the win in the same way that
they're
Max
close
does.
enough. They don't have to give Max maximum points either. So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I think that to me, that scenario is a more appealing, a more tasty one in my opinion. Max on pole, maybe Oscar second, and then Lando third, and let's see how this works, sort of in reverse order, if you will.
That would definitely work for me. Right, let's move on to Lando and Oscar. And I think I kind of want to take these two together because really this question, Max is the outlier here, right? Max is the lone wolf that is out there as the hunter that is waiting for a mistake to happen to the two drivers ahead of him. But those two drivers don't come in isolation. I think they have to be taken together, and I think that's how we should do it. But before we get into that, you know how much I love a super tie.
Zach Brown.
I do love Zach Brown. I do love Zach Brown. Why did we suddenly zoom in on you like so much?
I don't know. Let's see. Why don't you put your super times on? I'll fix it.
So far, when I've done these, I have shown you the entirety of the season, but now I'm just focusing in on the Belgium sprint until Mexico. Okay, Lando versus Oscar. Oscar in papaya, Lando in grey. And mate, this does not make for good reading if you are Oscar Piastri, because Lando, other than Belgium sprint, and I have to say, the Belgium sprint, he was about 5 or 6. Yeah, here we go. 0.6% away from Oscar in the Belgium sprint, and then turned that round the next day to get pole in the Grand Prix proper. And you can see from his grey line at the top of that graph, he has not taken his foot off the throttle. He has been the benchmark McLaren driver ever since then. And Oscar has had his moments. Hungary, Holland, Singapore even, he has been the faster driver, but he has fallen off a metaphorical cliff, and that must be eating away at him. And my worry here is that there is now there's a load of things that are going to be weighing in against Oscar Piastri, and the question is, can he get back down from them? And I do want to detail all of those reasons, because poor old Oscar, this isn't something that is happening to him, I think, in isolation. You will argue with me about a bunch of these things, and I invite that argument because it's fun. But just going back to those super times again, that initial that first part of the graph up until Singapore, I think his race pace and his results in those races really reflect a lack of confidence. Something was going on in the background. There was much more of a psychological thing going on there, right? And because his qualifying performances still weren't that bad. His pace was still there, but he was dropping it off the road in Baku. He was getting taken by his teammate into turn 3 in Singapore. And, you know, that speaks to a driver that isn't quite there in the head. And I don't know which one of these is the biggest one, but you can count off the reasons. There's the pressure of being in the championship lead for as long as he was. There's the fact that you've got Max Verstappen coming at him. But I think for me, the big one, and this is where you're going to disagree with me, is how far the papaya rules just did not help him out. And this Ammar, Ammar's going to do the who cares and the what are you talking about and the I'm having to pray to a God that will listen to me. But this is not just coming from me, right? And the evidence definitely seems to pile up. The incidents are there in their entirety, and I've documented them so many times. Being called off when he had the better tyre strategy in Australia, being told off for attacking his teammate in Hungary when his teammate was not told off for the same things, having to tow Lando to get him through Q2 in Italy, followed by the next day having to swap because of a dodgy pit stop on Lando's side. And then the Singapore thing. Again, these are the racing rules. Again, it comes down on the side of Lando. And again, Lando doesn't get any beration whatsoever. And it felt so much in Austin as if what had happened was that you and I might argue about this and think that it's a load of nonsense, but there must have been an internal conversation between Oscar and Mark Webber and the McLaren high-ups that went something along the lines of, all of these rules seem to come down on the side of Lando. This happened in Singapore, you need to do something about it. And they clumsily instituted these repercussions that we saw in Austin, which I think were a load of nonsense, but are a symptom of the fact that they had to show somehow that they weren't favouring the other driver. And if you want even more evidence of that, just listen to the Beyond the Grid podcast that Zach Brown and Andrea Stella were on. Tom Clarkson asked the question directly, right? He asked the question directly, what is going on? What do you say to people out there? Because it's not just me who say that you are favouring Lando Norris. And although the answer came back as nonsense, at no point in that entire podcast did I hear Zach Brown, the CEO of McLaren, the guy, the head honcho, turn around and say, yes, we really want Oscar to win this. It was always Andrea Stella that was having to make that. And this has finally been crystallized with Jos Verstappen. Did you hear his quote?
He wants them to I don't know, bang their heads on a table or something like that.
So he said, look, it's odd that Oscar Piastri has gone from leading the championship to suddenly having zero pace, and if it was him and he was the manager, he would bang the table in an internal meeting and say, what the heck is going on? Why are you not backing me? That Your Honour, is the case for the prosecution. Give me an answer. Tell me what I'm wrong. And before Ammar, just one last thing before you do answer that, I just need to be very clear. I am not talking about sabotage. I am not saying that McLaren are purposefully sabotaging.
Then what is it?
I've just told you all of the things. The decisions.
No, I know. But if it is not purposefully, then what is it?
The decisions always seem to come down in terms of Lando, because I think there is a feeling within certainly Zach Brown and certain parts of McLaren that Lando's been with the team for so long that it means that unconsciously, even if they won't admit it to themselves, unconsciously they want Lando to win more than they want Oscar to win. And it's not a physical thing where they are delaying parts going to Oscar, or giving him dodgy equipment, or breaking his floor, or not giving him data, or giving him poor equipment. It's not that. It's an unconscious thing that allows the team to have a reason and a mechanism by which Lando gets the better end of the deal, and it's happened too many times within that team for it to be a coincidence. Ammar, go for it. Other than putting your hand in your head, what have you got to say for yourself?
I don't even know how to respond. I mean, if you went to this evidence in a court, they would dismiss you within 3 seconds. They would really do, because everything that you just described to me is what I would describe in all caps, CRAP. That's how I would describe it. And I'll tell you why. For all of the examples that you just gave, you want to stop one step short of saying, well, they're doing it on purpose. So what is it? If they're doing it subconsciously, what are they? Unconscious bias. What are you talking about? They fought so hard to get him.
You're an educator. Do you not?
I know. That's exactly what I'm telling you. There's no, the unconscious bias does not exist in this case. Here's why. Evidence is they worked so hard to get Oscar. Did we all forget about the drama about Alpine has announced without my approval, blah, 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 that I'm there? We all just forget about that. They're actually fighting a case with Alex Palou, partly because of the Oscar situation. So yes, you can sit up here and say, oh, maybe Zach really doesn't want him, or he's not Zach's favorite. Okay, I can understand that. That's going to happen in every team. By the way, this is exactly what I had anticipated would happen at Ferrari. Had Ferrari been any bit competitive, they're not. Therefore, it's not an issue. This is always going to exist.
Ferrari, though, isn't it? And it happens.
Well, it is happening. I mean, yeah, of course, that's true. Yes, the turn one Mexico is so you can just see what that looks like next year, right? If they're any good, then this is the purgatory that I have to live in. Even if they're going to be great next year, we're not going to be happy. That's what we're at. So I don't understand what this they're doing it subconsciously, but they're not really being purposeful. Okay, yes, maybe Lando is their favorite, because guess what? He's been there when they were down in the dumps. And so yes, there is a little bit of loyalty. I don't understand if I'm going against Lando, I can understand why I would feel a certain way, but heck, I was leading the championship by 22 points, and the reason I have lost it has largely to do with my own form, not what the team has done. Because you just said they're not putting dodgy parts on there, or like mistakenly putting a loose wheel nut or something like that. So all of this is a fabric of the mind. It's a fabric of the mind. That's all it is.
If they had not swapped them around in Monza, Oscar would still be in the lead of the
championship.
Wait,
okay. No, yes. He wouldn't be in the lead. He would only be 3 points. He would only, they would be level, right?
No.
What is Lando's lead right now?
1 point.
Okay, so he would be up by 2 points. Correct. So wait a second. So here's what you're telling me. You are telling me that the guy that you anointed earlier in the season as the next greatest F1 driver and one deserving of a world championship has lost his marbles only because he was asked to swap. And at that time, he was only losing 3 points, mind you. This wasn't for a race win. This wasn't for any kind of position that was of consequence. It wasn't quite there. And also under very unusual circumstances, which again, we can come on here and criticize McLaren for that decision. Had it been swapped the other way around, we would probably still been debating that. At least some of us would have been. Fair enough. But you're telling me that one swap has essentially nuked the guy when he was getting pipped by Max at turn one in Imola, and he pipped Max at turn one in Saudi. So you're just telling me how fragile is this person? I refuse to believe that.
I am not saying that. In fact,
but then you just said, had that not happened in Monza, he would have been ahead. Yes, okay, but that's not. Had he not crashed in Baku, he would have been ahead too.
Okay, guys, you have to understand why I keep interrupting Ammar. The reason is because you're saying something that I didn't say.
I never said a word, by the way, when you were speaking.
Yeah, but that's because I'm not taking what you're saying.
But my point is also my point. No, Shez, you can't. I also wanted to say I had like 15 things in between.
But you can't mischaracterize what I have said. I
did not say you mischaracterized.
Yes, you have. You just said, and I quote, you're saying that one swap.
That's what you're alleging now.
No, it's not.
Okay, that's what you're saying. A series of incidences that led to race wins. All of those led to race wins, Shez. Everything that you described up until Monza, he was still leading by 22 points. So that doesn't make sense. Evidence is great, but you have to put it in context. Just coming up and saying, oh, look, this paper is blue doesn't mean anything. Can I write on it? You got to put more questions to it. So I refuse to admit that evidence.
how good
Yes, because
Oscar
he was leading.
But so
He was
tells
leading
you.
until then. So, but your point is essentially, Shez, don't swap in Monza. Everything
Correct.
would be great.
Correct. Well,
Okay,
he would be
my
ahead,
point to you
wouldn't
is don't crash in Baku. But who did that? Did someone tell him to do that?
Okay.
Also, you keep talking about these papaya rules as if they're working out against him. No one has stopped Oscar from qualifying P1. No one has. Put the car on pole, boom, go away. Nobody's going to do anything. Like, I don't understand this kind of stuff.
Okay, so can I argue against that? Because they did exactly that in Monza. Lando
He put it on pole.
Lando managed to
Oscar was on pole.
Lando managed to screw the pooch in Q2, and McLaren literally asked Oscar to come out.
Yes, they were trying to
tow
close
their
the
driver,
constructors.
tow his championship
Yes, okay.
rival.
So what?
Tell me that isn't favouring one driver over the other.
No, there isn't. No, it isn't. Because if the roles were reversed, they would have asked Lando to do it too.
Absolutely would not have done that.
But you don't know that. So you know that for
that.
certain. So, but that's my point. Now you're convinced. So this is it. So now this is what you're doing, Shez. You're already doing this with 4 races left. If Lando wins, and it does look like through your assessment, either he wins or Max wins, the defense for Oscar is, oh my God, McLaren did him in. He was in such great form, overcoming all of these issues.
I agree.
Everything that Lando did in Canada too, right? I mean, and a mechanical failure that Lando had. All of those things put aside, none of those things mattered. But these issues kind of got to him, and so then my response to you is, he's not a deserving champion. When people can come on and say, oh look, Lando bottles this and bottles that, this is also bottling in a sense, because no one has stopped Oscar from going faster. No one has asked him to crash in Baku. No one has asked him to be better at turn 1 in Austin and not nuke a sprint race. That he just kind of flew away with because we didn't want to make a big deal coming off of Monza. Again, no one has asked him not to be better in Mexico. Nobody asked him to do that. He could have put the car on pole too. Why didn't he do that? That has nothing to do with it. And so I would just tell you, Shez, my response to you is, everything you said can be true. And so what? This is what you overcome if you're going to become a champion.
That's right.
Sometimes it's competing with others. So that's it.
Sometimes
you can't do that. You can't do that.
It is competing against your own team.
Sure.
To try and
Oh,
win the
yeah. That
championship.
gave you a car, that got you so many race wins, all of that. How many race wins does Oscar have?
7.
Okay. So those happened during the same time period where you allege,
Yeah,
well,
where
maybe one was last year, but
because
6.
Because he was doing, as you say,
so,
out qualifying and out racing his teammate.
So that's it. So just do that and boom, you're done. You don't have to worry about it. I don't know. Again, unless you're going to say that they are manipulating something on the car, that's a different conversation. I'm happy to have that, but that's not the case. So,
I'm not saying that. But as I say, there is an unconscious bias, which even you have admitted may well
even
be
if
the
there's
case.
every team has that. I mean, God damn it,
But other teams
Red Bull has only one driver.
Yeah,
They don't even care about
yeah,
the second driver.
yeah,
What
but
are we
Ammar,
talking about?
Yeah, but Ammar, other teams in this scenario where their 2 drivers are this close don't have, their favoritism doesn't lead to tangible effects on results, which is what happened in Monza.
No, it isn't. You're absolutely wrong, Shez, because if Oscar doesn't crash in Baku, that's a different thing. But what you're saying can be a subset of the explanation. It cannot be the only explanation. At best, it is 10% of the explanation. That's it. At best, okay. At worst, it's 50%. Because again, the Baku crash cost him a lot of points. You say he would be up by 1 if McLaren are not swapping Monza. How many points would he be up by had he not crashed in Baku? He certainly could have been up by like 5-6 points.
That was his fault. I agree. Totally his fault. But Monza wasn't his fault.
What Monza wasn't his fault?
Monza wasn't his fault. Him having to give that place back wasn't his fault.
Okay,
him having
sure,
to
it wasn't his fault.
Him having to
Sure.
tow his
But you keep
championship
bringing one
rival
race as if that's the only
wasn't his fault.
race. And him
being
getting a
called off-
boost from a mechanical failure from Lando was also not his fault. But he
Sure.
did get a boost, right?
Sure,
he
but-
got a boost from that too,
but
right?
sure,
That
but
would
him
have been a
being-
much shorter dive.
him being crashed into
So-
by his teammate also wasn't his fault.
But again,
Him
he
being-
benefited from that. He finished and Lando didn't. He finished. He benefited
being-
from that.
Him being called off in multiple attacks is not his
Man,
fault.
I love that you're doing this. You're telling me that there are scratches all over my arm, and that's the reason my arm is going to fall off. Whereas I'm telling you that there are 2 big cuts that I made by virtue of not being careful with the knife. And you're telling me, no, look at all these wounds. That's why your arm's going to... That's what it feels like, Shez. And I gave you this analogy because you're a surgeon, so you would certainly understand this, right? Like, I'm telling you, whoa, Shez, I was using a sharp knife and I cut myself here in the arm, and you're like, no, wait a second. Oh, look at all these scratches you got because you went outside and they scratched you. That's what it sounds like, Shez. That's what it sounds. So everything you say, I agree with you.
Oh, good.
Yet that is not the reason for the downfall.
No, and I
have to,
I do have to agree with you a little bit there, because I think the car has changed
a little bit.
I think there is. Look, Lando has now got to a point where what he wants to do with the car is paying dividends. This car wants to be driven on the nose. This car wants to have a slightly looser...
Much like Max and Leclerc,
correct.
Right? Yeah, that's what they want. And George.
So if you... We've talked about this before. Go check out our video on Oscar's telemetry in Mexico, Austin, and Bahrain, just to see how Lando and Oscar compare. But the breakdown really is that this car seems to like to be driven on the nose, to be pitched in hard early, and then allow a little bit of instability at the rear. And Lando,
a little bit of drift, yeah. Yep.
Lando with his slightly more nuanced driving style, where he overlaps the braking and the throttle on turning, is better able to feel where that grip is and leverage what he's doing with the brake pedal and throttle to respond to that, and that gives him a better turn-in and gets the car straighter earlier and allows a better exit. Whereas Oscar's a bit more binary.
It's a different style.
It's a bit more binary, but it requires him to have a car that just turns in, has the grip front and rear in balance, and then just shoots off.
Away.
And that's what he has had until quite recently. But that doesn't seem to be the way that this car wants to be driven, to get the maximum out of it. And that, I think, if we go back to our super times, is why you see this massive drop off from Singapore, because I think that is where Lando's really started to understand. I don't know why you keep scoffing. Data is data, man. Anyway, so let's talk about Lando. Your clear favourite then for the championship. Is he going to win in
he's not my clear favorite, no, and I don't think he's winning. And in fact, I'll tell you this: neither McLaren driver are winning. The reason I told you Max is not winning, this weekend. Didn't you? We start by saying who would win this weekend. It's neither of the 3 drivers. I think this is a very Ferrari or a McLaren kind of weekend. Like this is it's going to be one of those weekends where you see these teams that I wouldn't say they're surprises, because Russell has done that on a few occasions already. Certainly Ferrari have looked like they could have done it. So I think the only surprise would be that. Shez, I do think that Lando is in best position to win the championship, because he already had, I think Lando's issues, as we've talked about, is more sort of within with his ability to kind of cope with mistakes or learn and, be a little bit less emotional. I think the fact that what happened in Holland happened, I think has sort of taken the emotion out of his sails, if you will. And I think now it kind of gives you this fresh reset and fresh perspective where you're just lighter. You're not thinking too hard. You're not too worried about it. It's not just the fact that you're saying that you're not thinking too hard. It's also you're not thinking, and you can just see that. That's probably why, to your point, Lando has been able to maximize the car for these last few races in the season, and I don't see why that would change all of a sudden, because he's been in a championship fight last year. He was down to Max. He got beaten pretty bad. This year he was down to Oscar. He's come back. Now, of course, essentially they're level in many cases, right? If this wasn't, we were going into Abu Dhabi, right? It wouldn't matter who was where, because the winner would win. I think there's just that level of lightness. I think that'll kind of make him more competitive. I can't go out and say that he would win the championship outright. I think Oscar still has it in him. By the way, one Oscar win changes the conversation all over again too. So I think that's also very possible. And maybe it's not in Brazil, but could certainly happen in Qatar when we get there. And that could change everything again for the last race.
But does that freedom of driving, does that not change again now that Lando's ahead and suddenly has a championship lead to defend once again? Because it seemed to me that literally the second he had a championship lead to defend in Australia, after Australia, he put it in the wall in Jeddah. And
that was earlier on, though.
Yeah, and okay, yeah. You can argue that actually he didn't have that front suspension change that he does now to allow him to feel the grip a bit better and really lean on his own driving style. But that pressure is back on him again, and why does that in this instance not switch things back again and make Lando the bottler we know and love?
Well, here's why. You learn from experiences, right? And again, what you said was at the beginning of the season. Also, Lando is not ahead by like a race win or anything. Like, again, essentially they're level for all intents and purposes. It could change by Saturday again. It could very well just be the other way around too, right? And I think there's also the element of Max sort of hanging around. So I think when you get into situations like this, certainly seems like Lando has, right? He has resolved his psyche and his psychology when it comes to approaching the race weekend and how to sort of go about that. Does that mean that every issue is fixed? No, absolutely not. But I think that, again, when you've been through that experience, it's sort of near-death experience, right? And I don't want to put it in such morbid terms, but you sort of, you'd lost all hope coming out of Holland, right? We were all saying, okay, this is essentially going to be Oscar and boo-hoo, this is going to be a boring season. No one had any of this sort of written down, right? So I think that when you've been at that stage, you've felt hopeless and now you have hope. I think you sort of approach it very, very positively, and we'll see how it works. Again, one weekend changes it. Again, an Oscar victory this weekend changes everything all over again, right? Because then they're on the other side of it. I think that the goal is clear for all of these three drivers, right? In a sense, just try to win the next two races, and I think that'll be fun. And I know it's not going to be easy to win them, but winning them would kind of change everything, really. If McLaren wins one of these two races, it's done, Shez. It really is done, and there's nothing to do after that, right?
No, but then it becomes a straight fight between Oscar and Lando, and
correct.
And your money comes down on Lando by the sounds of things.
At the moment, yes, yeah. That was then, this is now, and are you going to bet on Oscar? Is that what you're saying?
No take backs, mate. Yeah, I'm gonna gun for it because I think
no take backs.
No take backs. Yeah, you can't change
wow.
your mind. This is it. You're stuck with this for the rest of the season.
Wow.
I think. Okay. Yeah. I look. There's a certain level of risk in like pinning your colours to either mast. But for what it's worth, I think Oscar's had a couple of weeks. In the words of Andrea Stella, which this I thought was actually quite an interesting thing that he talked about, was how quickly Oscar can adapt to a change that he needs to make. So as soon as he knows, right, this is what I need to do, he just goes ahead and does it. And he gave the example of how he started to drive a bit more like how Lando drives, even if it was unnatural to him, quote, in the second half of the Mexican Grand Prix. And we saw that he started to come alive. And we can only really imagine that what he's going to have been doing in the sim is doing more and more and more of that, crunching the data on what happened across the Mexico and Austin weekends, applying what he has learned and trying to perfect it. And he perfects it quite quickly, which is what Andrea Stella was alluding to in that Beyond the Grid podcast. And let's not forget that last season, in the only dry qualifying that we had in Brazil, Oscar was on pole and would have won the race, the sprint race, if he hadn't been asked very kindly by McLaren to give the position to Lando to aid his championship bid that season. So
yes.
That did happen.
Yeah, they were both. No. I know. I mean, the next excuse that's going to come up is they were both flying first class, and one seat was ahead of the other. And guess whose seat was ahead? Oscar was ahead of Lando, and then they were asked to swap there. And then that's why he lost the race. That's what we're coming down to, Shez. Like this is not right. Like that was last year. Come on.
Yeah. What I mean by that is that I think Oscar has the pace and the experience of this track to do what he needs to do. So that's my reason for saying that actually I'm betting on Oscar getting his mojo back. But
yeah, I can see that too. No, I can see that. I mean, again, I think so. We do this thing again where we are prisoners of the moment, and in every judgment that we pass, it's either the greatest thing or the worst thing, right? I do not believe that Oscar is as fragile as the narrative has been, which is why I purposely reject your idea that what happened in Monza kind of trickled was sort of the tip of the iceberg, or rather the tipping point, if you will. I genuinely believe that there is some race crafting that needs to be improved, and I genuinely believe that he can do that and he will do that. And I don't know if it'll be enough or not. Like I'm not technically equipped to kind of say one way or another, but I don't think he's just going away like that. And again, he wins one race, everything changes all over again. Like we're going to have a completely different conversation, most of which will be around why did Lando not win? That's all we'll do. The only person that gets to escape this now is Max. If he doesn't win, we won't be saying anything other than, wow, he tried so hard. Like he's beyond criticism, but that's kind of what it comes down to. This is why I feel bad for both McLaren drivers, is either of them losing is going to be so much more painful than the one winning, and they're not going to be able to celebrate as a team, which is why I agree with Zach Brown's stance on not preferring one driver or the other. I really do. There's nothing to win out of that. So.
And you also agree with his assertion that if they get beaten by Max,
yes, I agree.
It's just better that they.
No, well, it's not. I mean, I don't know that he wants to get defeated by Max. Yeah. I mean, you already bought the conspiracy theory, so I know what you're setting up for. But the reality, I told you, I mean, it's conspiratorial. Come on, it's all circumstantial evidence, right? We all have it. I mean, but who doesn't have it? So, but it is fair. Then it is fair. I mean, if it as fair can be, right? I mean, that's all you can do. Like, of course, you're going to have your biases. What's wrong with that?
When they become tangibly, when they tangibly affect
his team, his way, man.
When they tangibly, okay, so then it is a favoritism towards a driver. I don't understand what you're saying.
It isn't a favoritism. It isn't a favoritism, because if it was favoritism, they would have made sure that Oscar gets his own DNF, in a sense, a mechanical DNF. That's not how this works. I don't think that any team principal wants to go out there and prefer one driver or the other, because
I didn't say that they were out there sabotaging his race or his car. All I'm saying is that when a decision needs to be made, when it's not even in the actual rules, it's in their rules, they bias it towards Lando, and you have just admitted that that's
I can't wait for the opposite to happen. I can't wait for the opposite, just because I want to see how it breaks you. I really do. I just want to see the opposite happen, where someone comes up and is like, Lando, just let Oscar by, or give him a tow this weekend. I really am hoping for that. I really am, because I just want to see what it does to your side of the camp, right? And again, I would just tell you, I support Zach's decision, because no, nobody wants their driver to not win, a driver from their team to not win. But the reality is exactly this. If they favor Lando, we have you complaining. If they favor Oscar, then we have Lando's camp complaining. That's going to happen.
But they haven't ever
but I know,
Oscar.
but let's say they favor. Let's say Oscar win now.
Well, why are we creating an if that has never happened? Because it never will.
You've already created a scenario where even when Oscar wins, your narrative is going to be, oh, he overcame his own team. I'm like,
agreed.
Good God, that team gave you a car that can win races in the first place. Are you serious? Are you just really serious? I mean, if he feels that way, then he should leave. Mark, get him out.
Why are you taking it to the lowest common denominator? Sure, but they've given that race-winning car to two drivers and then favorited one of them.
God.
That's not fair to me. Anyway.
There's going to be a Reddit post that you can join on this. I'm sure there is some of that.
Yes. Anyway, I think we've rambled on for long enough.
Yeah, we've blown way over time. It's okay.
Yeah, there you go. Predictions and arguments, as usual. Please like.
Ferrari winning this weekend. Yep. We're doing it. I believe.
As usual, please like, please subscribe, please leave us a comment. Please let us know who do you think is going to win the Brazilian Grand Prix this year, and do you think that driver will also win the championship? If not, who will? Let us know. We'll read every single one. We'll reply to as many as we possibly can, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Fix it, Fred.